So how do you start working through your emotions, right? Well, first, you want to recognize where you fall in how our emotions exist in layers. If you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling angry, you know that you are experiencing rage, which is violent anger, which means that your addiction is not being met. And addiction can be anything. It can be physical, mental, emotional. It can be anything. It can be having someone not agreeing with you, or someone not doing what they think that you should be doing. Someone not living their life or your life in a way that they expect you to. It could also be, well, I don't have any chocolate today, so my addiction's not being met. It's not the actual thing. The thing that we think we want is actually an addiction that covers fear. Fear stands for false expectations appearing real. So for example, if you think you need chocolate, you think you need it because it's actually covering a huge amount of fear that is actually covering even deeper layers of grief and sadness. We don't want to feel our grief from not being loved unconditionally all the time as the Creator would love us. So we change our beliefs about what is loving behavior and what's not. So unfortunately, if you're a young child, or really any age of a child, you're constantly absorbing the false beliefs of your parents. And this is not an attack on parents, but we do have to recognize how these emotional injuries get passed on. We live in a violent and angry society full of sexually repressed people who have false beliefs about God. And the only way to change that is by growing in love. And we do this by making our way individually, each person making the choice to work through their emotions, to release their grief, and to grow in love. So, I'll go through this again real quick, starting from the bottom up, okay? We first experience sadness from not feeling loved unconditionally all the time as the Creator would love us. For those of you who would like an example of that, let's say your parents fed you animal products as a young person. Well, if they feed you animal products, or like meat, like animal carcass, we'll talk about that specifically. If your parents feed you animal carcass, they are teaching you that that particular thing is food. So, in your soul, you take in that belief and you believe it. Now, I can say that the Creator does not believe that her creatures are food, and anyone can prove this by going through this experiment, but this is just an example, okay? Because it is a non-loving action, we do not want to feel as children that our parents do not love us unconditionally all the time as the Creator would. Because of this, we change our beliefs, oftentimes for self-preservation, because we have to. Once we have false beliefs, and I say false beliefs that are out of harmony with the Creator's view of love, we start to build up fear over top of that. And we do not want to feel our fear either. In fact, essentially all of American society has been constructed to keep us from feeling our own fear. As our fear builds up, we require addictions to quench that fear. Temporarily. This can be anything from food, sex, substances. It can be cruising the internet and finding people who agree with your worldview. When our addictions are not met, we experience rage, violent anger. I'll talk more about violence and anger in another video. When our anger is suppressed and we feel like we can't express it, it turns into depression, which is actually apathy, not sadness. Apathy and sadness are two different things. But again, let's say, going back to my food example, that you recognize that you were taught an error. Well, first you're going to feel anger at your parents for teaching you an error. I would recommend to feel out your anger in a general way without projecting it at anyone specifically. I personally scream. I also take cold showers, and sometimes I'll hit inanimate objects. If you are in your rage for even 30 to 40 seconds, you'll be able to get down into your next layer, into the fear. For me personally, the fear looks like my body shaking, so I'll demonstrate. Imagine I'm laying down. That shaking is good. That is the fear energy passing through us. As I had mentioned earlier, we are soul-based beings, and our souls are made of emotion, which is actually just energy in motion. So we're designed to have energy flow through us. And when we stop ourselves and hold those things in, we back ourselves up and we create all kinds of problems. I'll talk more about all these concepts in later videos, but I want to keep the videos short so that people don't lose interest.